Okay. We will go English today because we have a few people that are outside Italy. I recognize a name, Rokas, that looks like from Lithuania, or I think. Is it correct? Perfect. Vilnius. So you should know our first employee, the first person that I hired in all my life, is someone from Kaunas and studied at Vilnius University. So it was a Lithuanian. Employee number one was a Lithuanian, and so I think so. This would be a very interactive session as much as I can, and so it would be very important for me to start getting to know you a little bit. So I think what we can do today is to tell you some information, very basic intro of my personal experience in applied AI. Okay, so what worked for me and what didn't work for me, very quickly. Then we can go with some ideas, startup ideas, and I can tell you some stories about startups in applied AI that we invested in. And the last part, I would love to do a more interactive session where I tell you basically the underlying principle that are connected to successful startups, and we try to simulate a few ideas altogether. And so we'll find a way now in how to do this. I think, I think I can allow people to interact. Obviously, if you want to interact, if you don't want to interact, just let me know. But the idea is that we will try to simulate together. I will not push you to do any crazy stuff, but more trying to explore the areas where we can build together startup ideas. So to start, I've been involved in entrepreneurship and AI since 1999. So I was studying astrophysics, so nothing related to computer science or business. And what I did, I went to study abroad in France, in this case, where I met Isabelle, my wife and co-founder, which is actually also connected, I see there. And so she was a linguist and I was a computer scientist, kind of. So I was studying astrophysics, but I was passionate about computers since the beginning. And because she was a linguist and we wanted to spend more time together, we decided to create one of the first internet translation companies. I'm not talking about translations done by machines like Google Translate, pure AI. Our interest was really to do a platform to do human translation, so translation done by professional people. But AI came very, very soon anyway. And it was an hint. I received it from a guy called Paul Graham, the founder of Y Combinator. Before founding Y Combinator, Paul was writing essays on computer science, and he was doing some work on something called Bayesian classifiers. There are a form of text classifiers. And so in 2002, I took that technology and I started building our technology called a T-rank, a predictor. So we wanted to solve the problem where you have a document and you want to know who is the best person in the world to translate that kind of document. And yes, I mean, through that technology, we were able to do this in a much faster way than human could, with a very good accuracy, not good as human, but the human would take a day to decide which one is better to do the job, and the machine was taking a few seconds. And so that was creating an opportunity, because what people wanted was they wanted faster translations. And so we were able to, you place an order and we're able to associate you with the best translator immediately available in few seconds and start the work. Once we've done that, we realized that the blocking factor in the translation industry for speed, quality, and cost of translation was a problem that was connected to the way the human brain is. The fact that we have 100 billion neurons in our brain, and that capacity, that creates a certain computational capacity in language. And so our brain is able to output about 3,000 words per day in translation. So the beginners can do maybe 1,500, super pro can do 5,000, but no human beings is able to make 20,000 words a day. And so the cost of translation is strictly related to this. A professional translator needs to make a few €100 at least per day to live. So they have to charge between 5 and 10 cents per word, so that with 3,000 words a day, they can achieve it. So the cost of translation, the speed of translation, is a direct consequence of how our brain works and the capacity of our brain, the computational capacity of our brain. So we started working in 2002, 2003 in this field called human-computer interaction, where the question we're having is, what kind of suggestion I can give to a human brain so that the translation process becomes faster? And if we're able to do this 3-4 times faster, then basically we can deliver translation 3-4 times faster, but also we can make translation cheaper 3-4 times. And or you can use the same amount of time and drastically increase the quality, because the people will be concentrated more on the creative part of the translation rather than the boring, repetitive part. And it turned out that it was not an easy task. And it took about 4 or 5 years to start building something reasonable. But it was in 2010, 2012, when the first neural networks, deep neural networks, started to appear, that we were able actually to help a human more than what we were slowing down the human. So with the first suggestions, we were slowing actually the users, because what they were receiving from us was taking more time for them, for the brain to process it, rather than the advantage in speed up. But at one point, these suggestions became so valuable that they were speeding up. Already, I would say in 2008, 2009, we were starting seeing improvement, but in 2010, 2012, we started seeing a big improvement. And so today we're able to help people, and they're doing about 3 times faster translations. And now we do it, we have invented this new kind of neural network, which is called adaptive neural networks. Basically so if any of you is interested in AI, is a large transformer, so 2 large transformers concatenated, one for encoding, one for decoding, and that are able to be retrained in real time. What it means that when we provide a suggestion, a pre-translation of the text to a translator, they can fix the error and the machine instantly get retrained. So the model get updated as they fix the error. So from the sentence after, they will receive a suggestion that is influenced by their own choices just before. So with this approach, the machine is following the human in terms of the terminology, style, and is helping. So it's kind of a symbiosis. From a philosophical standpoint, this is very different from trying to replace humans. Let's say Google Translate, for example. This is more about how to create tools for humans to do great things. And it turned out that it was a great way to do business, because we are human, we're physical, we have a large economy. And so if you can make the current large economy faster and better, there is a much bigger opportunity than trying to disrupt the industry. And what turned out, so Translate became one of the most successful internet translation company, serving, by the way, Google, Airbnb is the biggest customer we have. Every content you see in the world from Airbnb is done by Translated. And so it turned out to be a very good thing, because the market of human translation is a $50 billion market, and the market for AI, pure software, in language is only 250 million this year. So 50 billion versus 250 million. So pure tech is order of magnitude smaller than the actual services. And so if you can make translator even just 20% more productive on a $50 billion market, you have created a $10 billion value for them. And if you're good enough as an entrepreneur, you can take a portion of it. So the value you're creating is significant, and you should be able to retain a fraction of it. And so it was very valuable. And the other thing we learned that's super important is that you cannot create successful startups by saying you use AI, but the most successful startups are actually making a product or service much better in a magic way. And the magic way is that they use AI. So people are not buying AI per se at all. It's a big buzzword. And so everybody who has things to be influenced saying, I would like to say this on my company tagline. But at the end, this is optimizing for your ego and for the investors' attraction. But the reality is what people want is a better service, faster results, cheaper. And so, or things that will inspire them more. So at the end, people are looking for solution, and AI is just the way you create the solution. So the most successful startup I've seen so far is companies that don't even mention the word AI, but they use it deeply inside to make the product look magic. So that I wanted to summarize this first experience we had at Translated. We don't have a lot of time today. And if you want to dig more at these elements, I think you can find my book for free on marcotrombetti.com. Okay, you can go there. It's all my essays are there, and you can dig down a little bit more on these elements. And the book is called The New Prince, and it's about why and how to start up. And it also tells a few more information about the story of Translated and other applied AI companies. So with the money that we made from Translated, me and Isabel and a big friend, Gianluca Granero, we co-founded PiCampus, a venture firm. So we realized that something important, that there was a way of making business, successful business with AI, by applying AI to large, slow-moving industries and making those industries more efficient. So we wanted to apply AI to medicine to help doctors, for example, but we had no medical background. And also, honestly, I'm 44 this year, and I realized the amount of energy I had when I was 25. And so I think I trust more the young generation than what I trust myself. And so I said, why don't we try to help these people, the newcomers, to do these great things? And the way to do it is basically that we created this venture fund, PiCampus, that has invested in 49 companies. So we provide from 50,000 to about 300,000 for pre-seed and seed investment, very early phase of the company, early stage. And in exchange, we get from 1 to 10% of the company. If the founder are successful in applying AI in a certain vertical, then they will become very rich, and we as investors will become quite rich. That's the business model. And it's called venture capital, and we do it in applied AI. And it's different from banks because we expect to lose money 9 times out of 10. And then for every 1 out of 10 companies, we hope to get 30 times the returns. So if you do the math at the end, you get 3 times back the money you invested. And so you understand it's a very high risk profile investment. So we invest in things that are crazy, really. But if they succeed, they're very big. And we have no fear of losing money 9 times out of 10. So the second thing that I wanted to share with you was about some other ideas about companies that we invested in, and understand how AI was used for those investments. So the first company I would like to mention is called Level 5, LVL5. So Level 5 was created by Andrew Curry. And Andrew was a young engineer that was the guy that was working on the Tesla autopilot directly under Elon Musk. So Andrew, while was very young, had an impressive opportunity to try to work on the autopilot, self-driving technology, the most sophisticated self-driving technology out there. And he did great. He did great there. But when he was at Tesla, he realized that there was a key element that was needed for self-driving cars, and that was high precision mapping. And so again, what Andrew started doing is using a camera installed on a car to try to record and model the world in 3D at high resolution, 1 centimeter precision. So typically, company will use LiDARs, so laser scanner, to do the mapping of the roads. And the intuition that Andrew had is that since we as humans can do it with just our eyes, with a camera, we should be able to do the same thing. So he started building an AI company for creating high resolution maps for self-driving cars. No, not maps for humans, but maps for self-driving car, so that the car knows very well where it is. And the idea is that you drive multiple times around the same roads, and you record a screenshot of a light or a signal, etc. And those things, they have very, very precise position. So with your GPS, if you see it multiple times, then you can start approximating to averages what the position of this fixed element is. And once you know the position of the fixed element, then you can rebuild the rest of the road, the exterior, starting from those points. So first example, I'm telling you, Andrew Curry with Level 5, they wanted to create maps for self-driving cars. And the way people were doing that basically was a manual way. So there was the need of those maps, and they were created very slowly by humans. And his idea is that, okay, I use a camera to replicate what the humans see, and I record that information, and then I build the map. Okay. And actually, so Level 5 was later acquired by DoorDash, a company that went public just a few days ago, yesterday or the day before. A very successful IPO. DoorDash does food delivery. And in fact, they hired Andrew for expanding the self-driving technology there. So the second company that I want to mention is, just because it's connected exactly to this, and it's very fun, also the story, it's called PiCampus. So PiCampus, go out and Google this company. They're Kiwi bots also. They're small robots that are able to drive on the sidewalk autonomously. They go to a restaurant, they pick your food, and they deliver these at home. The reason why these exist is that because people want deliveries to be faster and happen at any time. And the problem is that you were still limited by the fact that humans have to do the work. And it's not even a super nice work for the humans. We should try to create better opportunity for humans. And so the idea is that, okay, why don't we teach a robot how to do it so that this can happen also at night and can happen immediately, and not waiting for a human to go to the restaurant and pick your food because he's doing another service. So we can replicate robots much faster. And they started the company here in Rome. They grew it, and then they moved it to California, where they are based in Berkeley. And they're now doing probably about 10,000 deliveries a week already. So super nice company. The funny thing is that this company is connected also with DoorDash. I think they had a partnership with DoorDash, and at one point DoorDash, but they didn't want to sell the technology to them, and so they acquired Level 5, which was our other company. So it's funny that DoorDash anyway will connect with us in some way or another. So Kiwi is doing great. It's growing. Felipe, the founder, super smart, and so that's another way you can apply AI. So you take a problem that exists, shipment, and you replicate a human behavior, and you do it. We have skyways that are same thing but with drones that can go at 100 kilometers distance and go back without any assistance from a human. So it's a drone that drives itself and can bring about 20 kilograms of stuff. Give you another idea of application, and then I go to the medical space that I love, is space ride. So you probably heard of Cruise. Cruise was another self-driving company that was sold to General Motors for $1 billion. The founders are the former Justin TV founders, so Twitch. There's a brilliant team that did multiple things, and also including creating Cruise. So one of the top engineers at Cruise at one point realized that, okay, we're working on self-driving cars here, and that there is people that want this, but there is even someone that needs this even faster, which is self-driving rockets. So the way today we launch satellite in space is that we build a big rocket, we wait for many people to have stuff to send, we put everything inside the rocket, and then we put the rocket on orbit, okay? And it's a rocket that starts from the ground and is very heavy because when you take off from the ground, you have the atmosphere, a lot of friction, the rockets warm up, and you have to create protection from the rockets, and this protection add weights, and because you add weights, then you need to add more fuel, and so it's a constant activities to make the rocket bigger and bigger and bigger, and increase the cost of shipping. So the idea for them is that, what about if we take a balloon and bring the rocket to 30 kilometers where the atmosphere is not dense at all, and from there we launch the rockets. And the problem there, this solves the problem. You can make rockets that are a couple times smaller, and a couple times smaller means a couple times cheaper. And we need to launch about 15,000 satellites for internet, Starlink, OneWeb. And so there is a strong need of sending many satellites, nanosatellites into orbit. But the current models are too expensive. And so it works. So we can do this. But when they try to look at this, they realize that the problem is that a rocket that goes with a balloon, the balloon will bring the rocket wherever they want, so they don't have control over the trajectory of the rocket. So the way to solve it is to create a self-driving rocket. So you bring the intelligence to the rocket, so it doesn't matter where the balloon brings the rocket, you can fire the rocket and the balloon will go to the orbit in the right place. And so he was building self-driving cars. He realized that there was a need of this in another domain, space. And so they created Space Ride, a company that in just 4 months did their first rocket test. So super smart people. So to get to other startup ideas that I can tell you. So in one that I love, because the way they did an AI, very often I think they don't even realize they were doing AI all the time. It's called Wanderio. So Wanderio is a company that allows you to buy tickets from airplane, train, car rental, and buses directly from a single mobile application. And so you pick the flight you want, you click the button, and you receive the boarding pass directly. And so they're making buying aircraft or trains or buses as easy as buying or asking a Uber. So the way they did it, so this is what people want, because I don't want to waste that amount of time during my check-in and filling my information, and every airline is different, etc. So the way they did it is that they created a bot that after you buy the ticket in a standard way, the bot will go directly on the website of the airline, fill the form for you, and send you the boarding pass. So is an automation, is a bot that does what humans don't want to do. Because we humans on the internet especially, we discovered, this has been discovered, that we're driven by two things, vanity and laziness. So if there is something boring and we can create a machine that will do the work for us, 99% people will buy it. And so at the end, they didn't tell anyone that they were building AI. What they said is that, okay, here's my app, you click a button and you get your ticket. So Wanderi was later acquired by Europcar, the car rental company, that are having very, very hard time, car rental companies, due to COVID. So funny enough, some of the Wanderi team after 1 year is now working back at Translated, where they were working on other kind of AI problems. So incredible team made this simple technology that was acquired by Europcar. In terms of the medical space, again, a few ideas. So we have investment in Cambridge Cancer Genomics. So what they did is that they took one problem. There was the doctors and medical protocols are not very good at predicting what is the best chemotherapy given a certain tumor. So today how it works, if you have a tumor, you go to the hospital and the doctor will follow a protocol, medical protocol. It says, okay, for this kind of tumor, that is the chemotherapy drug you should be using. And this is a way to standardize things, but there is a problem. 50% of the time, the chemotherapy that the protocol has designed for you is the wrong one. So after 2 months, you do again a scan, the tumor size has not been reduced, and so the doctor will ask you to change the therapy. Most of the people think that this is because the therapy needs to be changed, but it's not. It's just that the first one was not working. So it was an error in deciding what was the chemotherapy for you. So what they did, very simple, they said, okay, we want to improve that. So they took 1,500 patients for which they knew the DNA of the tumor cell, the chemotherapy that was applied, and the result of the chemotherapy, positive or negative. And then they created a model that was predicting, given the DNA of the tumor cell, what was the best chemotherapy. So you collect past data of things that worked and that did not work, and you train the model to predict it. And that gives you about 90% accuracy. Beautiful, beautiful companies, again, going up and down with many difficult times, but brilliant ideas that is working pretty well. So they went through Y Combinator, raised, I think in total about 4 or 5 million. Super smart team of Cambridge. Another idea I can give you is Vena Vitals, for example, where a very last investment. So, and that's give you an idea, another kind of AI startup that are possible. So today, you want to measure blood pressure to people, and that's something you can do. But taking blood pressure is something that is slow as a process, and you can only do it maybe once a day if you're following up with a patient. And but the majority of us will measure pressure very few times a year. And what they said is that people would like to have a better recording of pressure, like their weight, for example, or other information. And so can we create a sensor that is able to give people blood pressure 24 hours, very precise? And so they started working, the team came from nanosurfaces, and so they've built a nanosurface. But this brilliant thing is this nanosurface create a sticker that you put here and a twist on the, and basically this surface is able to measure very small variation of the surface of your skin. And by doing that, can estimate the pressure of your blood. And the problem is that the nano surface contains a lot of micro measurement, many of them, and you have to combine them to do it. So this is the kind of thing that a human cannot do, because it's easy to do, very easy, but there is too much information to process from these 1,000 signals every second that are coming, and you have to process them to model and estimate the pressure of the skin. And so what I did, they created an AI model to predict that, and they solved the blood pressure problem by doing this. So they're now working to make this for hospitals, for some specific circumstances where you need 24 hours blood pressure measuring. But the idea behind is something that can scale. And so exactly like your Apple Watch is able to measure ECG, so your heart is able to measure also now the oximeter, the percentage of oxygen in your blood. Probably in the future we'll be able to measure also your pressure, and that is a tremendous step forward in medicine. So there is many things, and I wanted to give some ideas of how these AI problems were targeted. Obviously, you can also build tools for AI people, and there is more and more AI people, so people need tools. So one of our investments is called Deep Learning for Java, and is a Java framework for deep learning. So exactly like TensorFlow, PyTorch are designed around Python. Basically, they created a platform, open source, called Deep Learning for Java, that is basically based on Java. Very successful. Tencent, the Chinese fund, I invested 20 million, if I remember correctly. And it was one of our first investments in the AI space. So it can be tools for people, but most of the time, most of the things that I mentioned to you before is basically that you identify a need that is in the market. You know that people want it, and then you realize that the only thing that is stopping you from giving to people that is machine learning and AI, and you deliver that piece. And most of the people that I mentioned you are not actually selling the AI at all. They're selling their services. So Wanderio, for the tickets, air tickets, you're not selling the AI to buy tickets. They're not selling you the software that buys the ticket for you. They're actually selling you the tickets, and they take a commission. So they take a very large market and then they optimize it. They don't tell they use AI. Level 5, instead of paying people for manually building maps, no, they're basically creating an AI to build the maps, but they don't sell the technology for building the maps, they sell the maps. And Kiwi, robot delivery company, they're not selling the technology, the AI technology itself. They're selling the service delivery at €1 per delivery. So they simply took delivery that was in California, probably €3 per delivery. And they say, look, we deliver you 24/7 and at a cost of €1. So they give people what they wanted by creating a better product. And you know, the funny thing, at the beginning, they didn't have the AI at all. They had 1,000. They had 10 people in Colombia with a remote control piloting the robots. And by having the humans to piloting the robots, then they collected the data that was required to build the model that now drive itself, or at least drive itself up to a point. And when they fail, there's still a human that is happening. But they, at the end, what people want is faster and cheaper deliveries. That happens every time, and that's what they give them. Space ride, again, space rocket. They want rocket to send nanosatellites in orbit for a cheaper cost. That was important to allow internet via satellite. That's what they're doing. Vena vitals for the pressure, Cambridge Cancer Genomics. You want a bigger accuracy in predicting what is your chemotherapy, and they work on that. So as you see, as a pattern, most of the successful companies that I have seen and directly involved with, but you can find also many other references out there, do not mention AI at all. They just solve problems. They just create better services for their customer using AI to look the product looks magic. It worked for me, I translated, it worked for all these many companies. Now, what the problem is, if you go outside to try to find reference of this, it's very hard because those people are not telling you they use AI. So you see, the message, and I think the most important thing that I can share with you is something that is counterintuitive. That it's not what everyone is telling you, because the pressure you receive from us is that, from outside, is that if you want to build a startup, you should create an AI startup because that's the way you have success. And so what it turns out is that you go out and say everyone you're building an AI startup. And the counterintuitive things that I'm telling you is that the most successful companies out there are actually using AI secretly to make the product looks magic. So I think we're done with this first part here. And what I wanted to do now, when we have about 17 minutes, I would like to have more interactive part where we think together about some problems that we can attack through AI. And this problem, so I will announce about 3 simple principles. And we can try together to create ideas related to this. So the first principle I want to say you is that for today in AI, you have to think AI as valuable where you have a problem that you can solve with 1,000 interns. So people that are unexperienced in a certain field, and they have an attention span of 3 seconds. So if you have 1,000 people for free that can do tasks, brain tasks, that takes about 2-3 seconds. So not something super complex like writing a full book. No way to have success in that. But if there is tasks that the brain takes 2-3 seconds, and you have 1,000 people that are going to work for you for free to do this, so what will you do with this 1,000 people? Because if you identify problems you can do with 1,000 people with 2 seconds attention span, then that's the perfect place to apply AI today. The second element you need is that you find something that people really want. So not something that you feel is good for people or that they may need, is something that they want. And that creates a very, very big difference you will see in the kind of startups you can make. And third thing, so when I said that the second point is that some people really want it. Doesn't need to be that many people want it. You need at the beginning that a small amount of users really want what you're building. And the third element is that in the future, it's very probable there will be many people, many more people with the same need of these people today. So to repeat, the 3 elements for successfully a startup is identifying problems that you can solve with it, like with 1,000 interns with an attention span of 2-3 seconds. Second, that you define the problem that some people really, really want. They need it. And third, in the future, you think there will be more people like those people that will really want what you're building. So, so if you want, before we go and start, I will ask if there is any of you. I don't know how you can interact with me. Sorry, that's my first time with Zoom in this configuration. So, so is there any of you that is actually right now working on building its own startup? So if there is, please in the chat or raise your hand. I don't know if there is a functionality for raising your hand. Let's see. I'm targeting Alessio, Andrea Francesco, Angelo, Antonio, Barbara, so many people, Chiara. Not reading all the names here. Rokas, I'm doing a PhD on automatic segmentation of brain tumors. Oh, okay. And it would be interesting to go in that direction for the future. Okay, Rokas, I think, so let's try to find a possible startup areas, a way to get started, if that is the context you want to operate. So you already have a great background on this, so it's definitely a good area where to create a company. So automatic segmentation of brain tumors. So I will ask you, so if you add today, let's start with the point number one. So what is the problem that people want? What are you trying to achieve? Is there in the world some people that really need segmentation of brain tumors? And who these people are? And if you want, Rokas, you can ask me to speak. I think there is a button. And in case I can get you to talk if you want. It's okay. So let's, meanwhile, so Rokas says something simple. Said there is a shortage of radiologists worldwide. So what he says is that, look, the time it takes to translate into someone that is buying this, it takes time to analyze brain tumor scans, and is expensive. And so we want to create a technology that is able to do this much faster. So there is the possibility, so what it looks like that there is the possibility of having the machines, but there is less possibility of having humans to do the work of segmentation. Okay, so what I'm asking you, so if you add 1,000 intern radiologists, so not the most expert radiologist, but 1,000 intern that are going to work for free 24 hours a day for you, always available to you. Do you think you can solve this problem? So if you ask them to look at the data and then you do the averages, so you invent something smart to do this. So if you use the 1,000 people in turn, are you able to solve this problem? Yeah. They have studied, they have some experience, but not the best in the world. But 1,000, many. So that already identify you the timing, the appropriate timing for the solution. So we know that in image recognition, especially in radiology, there's many papers where we are getting on par with human quality. That what the scientist says, the reality is that human is a very, very, very bad definition of performance, because unfortunately you have people with zero experience and very small computational capacity, and then you have the best radiologists in the world. Okay, so so the problem this is telling you, so if you don't think that an intern, 1,000 intern can solve, it's probably that the timing is not perfect. So the timing for the best startup in this field is when you have the feeling that 1,000 radiologists will do with a 2-second span, attention span. So I actually think that if you average all these people and their validation and you ask them to study a lot before doing the analysis because you have infinite time for them to, I think that they could, but probably something that maybe the machine will be able to do in a short amount of time. But it's truly something that is just in the position. So, in my last question is, do you think that in the future there will be more people that will need real-time results from a radiology or less? And I don't have to ask you, it's obviously yes. As we go forward, people would like to have a better service in this. So if today some hospitals are thinking about using AI to speed up the process, for sure in the future more. So your startup ideas, you have all the 3 elements that are aligned quite well. I think only the right point to start your startup is when you feel that with 1,000 interns, kind of, so small cognitive power, you're able to do it because you become very successful in building a startup when you actually not only make something faster, but when you are getting into the quality of the top 10-20% of the radiologists. And for translation, it was the same thing, and it's not obvious. You think that every suggestion will speed up people. That's absolutely false. The problem is that any suggestion you give, so if you pre-process the data and you do an estimation, there is a time for the people to read your data, trust your data, etc. And if this is slowing down the process more than what is helping, you fail. So I think that when you are close to believing that with 1,000 interns you can do it, then I think you would be in the right point. Obviously, I said attention span 2-3 seconds, and every year we get more computational capacity, so you get 4, 5, 6, 10 seconds, and maybe in 3 years you will have 10 seconds attention span, which means you have reflective thinking and you can do much more. So that's one way to prototype first idea. Let me get to the second one. And Rokas, thank you. And please, by the way, if you start this project one day, contact me, okay? marco@picampus.it or LinkedIn. So I had a question from Federico. So what would you suggest someone that is just getting out of high school and wants to learn more in the future, and in the future create his own startup? So my recommendation would be make sure you do experiences in different fields. So today, the biggest opportunity that is out there is that we became very specialized in different fields. Like medicine, people are going very, very deep and becoming expert. And then in information technology, computer science, you go deep and you solve problems. But very often, the problem is that a computer scientist, they don't know what problem to solve. And so the most successful cases I'm seeing is that people that have been studying in one domain and then went to do an internship or work in a totally completely domain. So you go and you do university or you learn how to code, and then you go to work for a pharmaceutical company. And it's counterintuitive, looks crazy because it's not the career path that your mom and dad are willing for you, but that exposes you to 2 things. Number one, to problems for computer scientists that you were not aware. And number two, you are exposed in an ecosystem where you are rare. You are different from the other, and so they need you more. So I made an example of computer science and pharmaceuticals, but I think you can find other connection in other domains. So my suggestion is go study one thing and then start working in a completely different domain as a computer scientist. So if you study I'm not saying that you should go and change completely work, but work for a company that does different things. And let me check other questions. Alessio Martini, I've been dealing with data science since 10 years. As a mechanical engineer in different fields. From my working experience, the problem to solve is to limit the AI project failures and let this technology to be adopted more and more. Allowing people to have real consciousness about their own AI level in terms of business understanding, technical and project management, starting AI-based advisory. Well, I think, Alessio, if you want to do a consulting company in AI, that's the path. You're saying it right. It's about consciousness, it's about explaining to people, etc. If you want to create a startup that builds a product, then you have to go with what people want, give them what they want, and make sure you start from a strongly perceived need. You build it and you sell that at scale, which is slightly different approach, and both will give you satisfaction. But I think consultancy and products, they are somewhat very, very different. I have Ludovico here. Ludovico Lanni, how can you address the fake news problem on social media without imposing censorship? I think this is a massive challenge. Well, again, so that's, how do I say this without offending anyone? So startups are successful if you make something people want. If you do what people need and you know they need it, that is called a non-profit. So you're working to change the behavior of the people. In one case, you earn money. In the second case, you lose money, you spend money. They're all both noble things to do. And we want more people to do non-profit because this is good, but that's not how the way you can create a successful startup. And for fake news that I hate, and we should do our best, it's very, very hard to solve this through a startup because unfortunately, fake news is what people want. Our brain is designed to be gratified by reinforcement. When we think that someone is a bad person and we receive a news saying that that person is bad, we receive dopamine, we receive pleasure. And when we receive an information that is telling us the truth that we don't believe in yet, that creates an effort for our brain to change. And we don't like it. And unfortunately, it's very, very, very hard to create startups on need, on problems that people don't want to be solved. So I would love to find a startup that even is able to solve this problem and find a way to build something that people need and solve the fake news problem. I have honestly more hope on a non-profit that will do it, and with many of us donating to this non-profit to try to solve the problem. So please remember that we will need to turn the Zoom call off. Okay, it's over. So I want to tell you, so if you want to dig a little bit more, at 4 p.m. today, our director of AI Translated, Sebastian, and director also of the Pi School of AI, is doing another webinar at 4 p.m. about AI for business. If you want to contact me, you can find me on LinkedIn. If you want to read more about the things I do, marcotrombetti.com, you can get my book for free there. Thank you so much to everyone. Have a nice day.